Pam Bondi had been answering questions for 90 minutes. When Cory Booker reached into his folder, she had handled everything the morning had thrown at her. Tough questions about DOJ policy, pointed inquiries about specific decisions made under her leadership, the kind of sustained, pressured questioning that a Senate hearing can generate when the members on the other side of the table have genuine concerns and the political will to press them. She had handled all of it composed, measured, in control. She was, by any fair assessment of what a confirmation hearing demands from a witness, performing exactly as she needed to perform. Every difficult question had been met with a response that was technically sufficient without being dangerously specific. Every pressure point had been managed without cracking. The morning had been going the way her team had prepared it to go. And then Booker reached into the folder. He did not announce what he was removing. He did not preface it with a description of its significance or a statement about why it mattered. He simply placed it on the desk in front of him, a single document, facing down, in the center of his workspace, and continued the line of questioning he had been developing for the previous 4 minutes as though nothing had changed. But something had changed because Bondi saw the document land on the table, and the quality of her attention shifted in a way that experienced observers of Senate proceedings know how to read. Not dramatically, not in a way that most people watching the feed would have caught in real time, but the slight recalibration that happens when a witness who has been performing with confidence encounters something unexpected in their peripheral vision and begins, quietly and invisibly, to run a different set of calculations. Booker asked 2 more questions before he touched the document. This, too, was deliberate. In the architecture of a well-constructed evidentiary exchange, the questions that precede the document are as important as the document itself. They establish, on the record, the witness's current position, the specific claims, the specific characterizations, the specific version of events that the witness is committing to under oath, so that when the document arrives, the distance between what was claimed and what the record shows is fully and precisely defined. He asked them the same way he had been asking questions all morning, directly, specifically, in a way that required a direct and specific answer rather than the kind of general characterization that allows a witness to be responsive without being informative. Bondi answered both. Her responses were still controlled, still professionally constructed, still the product of a woman who understood how these proceedings worked and had prepared extensively for this one, but they were slightly more careful than the answers that had preceded them, slightly more hedged around the edges. The document was doing its work before Booker had even opened it. That is the thing about a file placed on a desk in a hearing room. Its presence alone communicates something. It tells the witness that the senator holding it has done work they did not expect, that there is a piece of the picture in that room that was not supposed to be in that room, and that everything the witness says from that moment forward is going to be measured against whatever is inside it. He opened it after the second answer slowly, without theater, the way someone opens a document they have read many times and know exactly what they are looking for. He turned to the 3rd page without reading from the first 2, a detail that would mean nothing to most people watching, a detail that meant something specific to anyone who understood what it signaled, that the first 2 pages were context, already accounted for, and that what Booker had come to the hearing to place on the record was on page 3. He read 1 paragraph. That paragraph contained information that Pam Bondi had not disclosed in 90 minutes of testimony, not information that she had been specifically asked about and declined to provide, information that was directly relevant to the questions she had been answering, that bore directly on the characterizations she had offered, the timeline she had constructed, the account of her department's conduct that she had been building, piece by piece, across the entire morning. Information that, had it been known to the committee at the start of the hearing, would have changed the shape of every question that had been asked. It had not been known because the document containing it had not been produced. It had been requested formally through the proper channels that exist precisely to ensure that congressional oversight of executive agencies functions the way it is supposed to function, by members of the committee with the statutory authority to make that request and the reasonable expectation, grounded in law and decades of institutional practice, that the Department of Justice would comply. The department had not complied. Not through an oversight, not through the kind of administrative failure that large bureaucracies occasionally produce despite everyone's best intentions. It had not been produced. The document Booker was now reading from had arrived through a different channel entirely, not through the DOJ's formal response to the committee's request, through the kind of careful, independent document gathering that a senator's staff undertakes when they have reason to believe that the formal response to a document request is not the complete response. Someone on Booker's staff had done the work, had gone through the independent channels available to a senator's office when the formal channels produce incomplete results, had pulled records that the department was required to maintain and that existed in places the department's formal document response had not reached. One had found the file, someone had read it, I had understood what it contained and what it meant for the testimony that was going to be given in this hearing room on this morning, and Booker had walked in with it. Ready. Bondi's single quotes response to the paragraph he read was immediate and unmistakable. not in the way that the word screams, in a headline suggests, not a loss of composure, not a raised voice, not the kind of visible emotional reaction that cameras capture and clips circulate around. In the way that matters more, in the way that lasts longer, in the way that gets written into the permanent transcript of a Senate proceeding and stays there regardless of what the communications team does in the 48 hours that follow. She contested the document. She questioned its authenticity. She suggested that the version Booker was reading from might not reflect the final, complete, officially authorized record. She indicated that she would need to consult with department counsel before she could address its contents on the record. These responses told the room everything. Not what Bondi intended to communicate, what the responses themselves communicated through their structure and their content, and the specific defense they chose to mount. Because contesting the authenticity of a document is a specific move. It is not the move a witness makes when a document is irrelevant or mistaken or easily explained. It is the move a witness makes when a document is accurate and damaging, and the only available defense is to create enough uncertainty about its provenance to buy time. Booker had anticipated this. He turned to the cover page of the document, the page he had skipped past when he went directly to page 3, and read the official header, the originating office, the date of creation, the classification markings, the distribution list that established who had received it and when. The document was authentic. It was from the Department of Justice. It had been created during Bondi's tenure, by people working inside the institution she led, in the normal course of the department's operations, and it said what it said. No amount of questioning its provenance was going to change that. The silence after Booker finished reading the cover page was different from the silence that had followed the paragraph on page 3. That silence had been the silence of a room processing something unexpected. This silence was the silence of a room that had just watched an attempt to discredit a document fail in real time. In public, in front of every camera in the chamber, Booker asked his question. He asked Bondi to explain, in light of the document now in the record, why the information it contained had not been disclosed in her testimony or in the department's response to the committee's formal document request. The answer she gave was long. It referenced procedural complexity. It referenced the volume of materials that a department the size of the DOJ manages at any given time. It referenced the good faith efforts of her staff to respond comprehensively to the committee's requests. It referenced, at some length, the institutional challenges involved in ensuring that every relevant document reaches every relevant proceeding in a timely manner. What it did not do, what it carefully, deliberately, professionally avoided doing, was explain why this specific document, the one now open on Booker's desk, the one that directly addressed the specific questions the committee had been asking for weeks, had not made it into the department's formal response. Booker let the answer finish. Then he asked the question again, more specifically this time, with the document open in front of him, and the specific section highlighted, and the specific question narrowed to the single point that the answer had not addressed. Bondi said she would follow up with the committee in writing. Booker noted that the committee had been waiting for a written follow-up on related matters for 11 weeks. He said it without emphasis, without edit. The way you state a fact, when the fact is sufficient, on its own, and any addition to it, would only diminish it. The room understood what that meant. Everyone in it understood what that meant. What this exchange reveals about the relationship between the Department of Justice and the Senate Judiciary Committee under Bondi leadership is not an abstraction or a political talking point. It is a documented pattern. Document requests submitted, responses provided that are technically responsive but substantively incomplete, key materials absent from productions without explanation, members of the committee receiving, through independent channels, documents that the department was legally obligated to provide and did not. That pattern has consequences beyond this hearing, beyond this committee, beyond this particular exchange between one senator and one attorney general on one Tuesday morning. Congressional oversight of the Department of Justice depends, at its foundation, on the department's willingness to comply with legitimate document requests from the relevant committees. When that compliance is selective, when documents that support the department's preferred narrative are produced and documents that complicate it are not, the oversight function breaks down. What Booker did by walking into that hearing room with the document the department had not produced was not merely score a point in a political exchange. It was not a performance. It was not a tactical move designed to generate a clip that would circulate for 48 hours and then disappear into the archive. He demonstrated, with a single physical object placed on a Senate hearing room table, that the department's compliance with the committee's document requests had been incomplete in a specific, material, and consequential way. That demonstration is now part of the permanent record of this committee. The document is in the record, authenticated, sourced, entered into the permanent transcript of a United States Senate committee hearing. The question of why it was not produced through proper channels is in the record. The answer that did not answer the question is in the record, and the follow-up request that has been pending for 11 weeks, noted by Booker on the public transcript of a Senate hearing, is in the record. Pam Bondi arrived at that hearing with 90 minutes of prepared, controlled, professionally managed testimony behind her and a team that had spent weeks ensuring she would walk out of the chamber with her account intact. She left with a hidden file in the permanent congressional record and a question she could not answer in front of the committee, the cameras, and the country. That is what the document did. That is what it always does. When someone has done the work to find it, understand it, and walk into the room prepared to use it, not to perform, not to generate a moment, to establish a fact, the fact is established. The file is in the record, and the department that chose not to produce it will need to explain that choice to a committee that now knows, with certainty, that the choice was made. The file was hidden. Booker found it. And once it was on that table, there was nothing Bondi could do to make it disappear. So what do you think about that moment? When Cory Booker placed that document on the table and read it into the record, was that just another exchange? Or was that the moment everything changed? Why do you think that file wasn't produced through official channels in the first place? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more breakdowns of the moments where the record tells a different story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Capital Clash so you don't miss what comes next.